Welcome to episode 8. In the last video, I laid out the walls and installed the bottom plates. In this video, I will be working on lateral block wall supports, 2 ways to find plumb, installing 3/4 inch OSB for draft stops, and installing the top plate. If you have some sprayed on foam insulation around the perimeter of your floor joists, you will need to chisel out some pockets to allow for proper connection of the lateral blocks. These blocks need to be at least 24 inches on center. In this block, I have pre-drilled 2 holes and inserted a screw in each hole. This allows me to secure the hard-to-reach side of the blocks. Also, if you have a handheld nail driver, that works also. In the last video, I laid out the walls to the basement and installed the bottom plates. To help me explain the next steps, I have created this cross section. From the bottom plate, we need to plumb up and establish a line for the top of our walls. Then cut some 3/4 inch OSB into planks and install that as a draft stop. To help the draft stop, we need to stuff some fiberglass insulation between the OSB and the top of the foundation wall. Then cut a 2x4 for the top plate and install it underneath the OSB draft stop. To keep your walls straight up and down, you need to find plumb. This can be found by using a plumb bob or the plumb bubbles in a level. To use a plumb bob, tap in a nail on the side of the joists. Loop the line of the plumb bob over the nail and hang the plumb bob just off of the floor. At the floor, measure from the bottom plate to the point of the plumb bob. Then take that measurement up to the lateral block by the plumb bob, measure from the line of the plumb bob back onto the lateral block and mark it. Now that mark should be plumb with the bottom plate. However, it looks like this foundation wall is leaning into the room a bit. Place a square or a ruler on the foundation wall up to the block and mark the block. From that mark, measure out 3.5 inches. Now I measure from the 3.5 inch mark and the plumb mark, and that tells me how far off the wall is. To fix the mistake I made, I take some pressure treated 2x4 out to my table saw, cut some scabs, and glue and nail that to the bottom plate. It's easier to do that than to move the foundation wall. It's important to keep all walls plumb and straight. The other way to find plumb is to select a straight 2x4, cut it so that it is just under the height of the ceiling. Shrink wrap a 4-foot level to it. Then use the plumb bubbles on the level to find plumb. Levels have 3 bubbles. The center bubble is for leveling. The bubbles on the right or the left or the top and the bottom are for plumbing. After finding plumb at each end of a given wall, snap a line. Now, before we can build our walls, we need to install a draft stop. Cut some 3/4 inch OSB into 8-foot planks. To determine the width of the planks, measure from the snap line to the rim plate. Cut the OSB so that the joints are over a framing member or a lateral block. Use some handheld clamps to clamp it in place, then nail. Replace any insulation you may have previously removed. Before you install the top plate, you need to stuff some scrap insulation in between the OSB and the top of the foundation wall. As you come to waste lines or sewer lines, cut the OSB around them. Use foam to fill in the gaps around these things. Keep working around until you get all of the OSB draft stop installed. Top plates. Cut your long 2x4s to length. Use hand clamps to hold it in place against the OSB. And nail 2 nails per connection. Also, cut the 2x4 top plate around any obstacles such as sewer lines, waste lines, water lines, whatever the obstacles might be. In the next video, I will be working on installing the studs and framing the closet door. If you want to be kept up to date with all my posts, you may want to subscribe and ring the bell so that you do not miss out on anything. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day.